The city was alive with its usual chaos, cars honking, people rushing to their destinations, and the faint hum of conversations spilling out from cafes and restaurants. Among these bustling spots stood a cozy diner named Bella's Bistro, tucked away on a busy street corner. It wasn't anything fancy, but it had earned a reputation for serving hearty meals at reasonable prices. On this particular Friday evening, the bistro was packed with customers enjoying dinner after a long week. Unbeknownst to anyone inside, one of the patrons sitting quietly in the corner was no ordinary customer. James Carter, the CEO of a massive hospitality chain that owned dozens of restaurants across the country, had decided to go undercover. Dressed in casual jeans and a plain sweater, he blended seamlessly with the crowd. His mission? To see firsthand how his employees interacted with customers and whether the company's values were being upheld on the ground level. For years, James had relied on reports and feedback forms, but tonight, he wanted to experience things himself. As he sipped his coffee, James observed the staff moving around efficiently despite the hectic environment. Servers darted between tables, balancing trays laden with food while exchanging polite smiles with diners. One waitress, however, caught his attention more than the others. Her name tag read, Sarah, and she seemed different from the rest, not just because of her warm demeanor, but also the way she carried herself. There was a quiet determination in her movements, as if she were fighting against something unseen. James noticed Sarah handling multiple tables effortlessly, even managing to crack jokes that made her customers laugh. Yet there was an underlying exhaustion etched on her face, noticeable only to someone paying close attention. He wondered about her story. Was she a student working part-time? A single parent juggling responsibilities? Whatever it was, she clearly cared deeply about doing her job well. Just as James began jotting down some mental notes about Sarah's efficiency, a loud voice shattered the pleasant ambiance of the restaurant. At a nearby table sat a man dressed in an expensive suit, his tie slightly loosened as though he'd come straight from a high-stakes meeting. He tapped his fork impatiently against his plate, glaring at the food in front of him. When Sarah approached to check on him, he didn't bother hiding his irritation. "This is unacceptable," the man barked, pointing at his steak. "It's overcooked, cold, and tastes like cardboard. Do you even know what quality means here?" Sarah flinched, but quickly recovered, offering an apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry to hear that, sir. Let me take care of it right away. I'll have the chef prepare a fresh dish for you." But the man wasn't satisfied. If anything, her calm response only fueled his anger further. "Don't give me your rehearsed lines," he snapped, leaning back in his chair dramatically. "You people always say the same thing when you mess up. What kind of service is this?" The tension in the air grew thicker and several heads turned toward the commotion. Some diners exchanged uncomfortable glances, unsure whether to intervene or pretend they hadn't noticed. Others simply stared openly, curious to see how the situation would unfold. Sarah, meanwhile, remained composed despite the rising pressure. She tried again, her voice steady but tinged with desperation. "Sir, I assure you we aim to provide the best experience possible. Please allow me to fix this for you. Would you like me to bring you something else while we prepare your new order?" Her words seemed to infuriate the man even more. With a sudden burst of rage, he grabbed a piece of bread from his plate and hurled it directly at Sarah's face. The soft thud of the bread hitting her cheek echoed louder than any shout could. Gasps rippled through the room as everyone froze in shock. No one expected such blatant disrespect, especially not directed at someone who was clearly trying her best. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Sarah stood rooted to the spot, her hand instinctively reaching up to touch her cheek where the bread had struck. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely, refusing to let them fall. Her lips trembled slightly, and her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Despite the humiliation Corsinus threw at her, she maintained her composure, unwilling to stoop to his level. James watched the entire scene unfold with growing anger. As the CEO of the company, he prided himself on fostering a culture of respect and professionalism within his establishments. Seeing one of his employees treated so poorly, and in public no less, was unacceptable. But what troubled him most was the collective silence that followed the incident. Not a single person stepped forward to defend Sarah or condemn the man's behavior. It was as though fear or indifference had paralyzed everyone in the room. Unable to stay seated any longer, James rose from his table and walked over to where the confrontation was taking place. His presence immediately drew attention, though no one knew who he was yet. Standing tall and authoritative, he addressed the man in the suit with a calm but firm tone. "Is there a problem here?" James asked, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere like a knife. The man looked up, startled by the interruption. Upon seeing James's unassuming appearance, he sneered dismissively. "And who are you supposed to be? This doesn't concern you." James ignored the rudeness and turned his focus to Sarah instead. "Are you all right?" he asked gently, his eyes filled with genuine concern. Sarah nodded hesitantly, still struggling to regain her footing emotionally. Satisfied that she was physically unharmed, James redirected his attention to the rude patron. "Sir," he said, his tone now harder, "I think it would be best if you left. Your behavior is inappropriate and disrespectful, not just to this young woman but to everyone. Here," the man scoffed, crossing his arms defiantly. "Oh, really? And what makes you think you can tell me what to do?" Without missing a beat, James reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He placed several $100 bills on the table, enough to cover the man's meal several times over. "This should take care of your tab," he said coolly. "Now please leave before I call security." The man's face turned red with embarrassment as he realized he was dealing with someone who couldn't be intimidated. Muttering under his breath, he grabbed his coat and stormed out of the restaurant, leaving behind a trail of awkwardness. The room remained silent for a few seconds longer before murmurs of relief and admiration began to spread. James didn't wait for applause or recognition. Instead, he turned back to Sarah, whose expression had softened slightly. "Are you okay?" he repeated, softer this time. Sarah managed a small nod, her gratitude evident even though she couldn't find the words to express it. Little did she know this encounter was about to change her life and the lives of countless others in ways she could never have imagined. After the man stormed out of the restaurant, the atmosphere slowly began to shift. The initial shock gave way to a mix of emotions: relief, curiosity, and admiration. Customers who had been silent witnesses to the incident now whispered among themselves, some praising James for his boldness while others speculated about who he really was. A few even clapped softly, though it quickly faded into an awkward silence as people returned to their meals. James, however, wasn't done yet. He turned his full attention to Sarah, who still stood frozen in place, her hands trembling slightly despite her efforts to appear composed. Her cheeks were flushed with embarrassment, and her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Though she tried to mask her vulnerability, it was clear that the incident had shaken her deeply. James could see the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders, and he knew he needed to do more than just offer temporary comfort. "Hey," he said gently, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. "You handled that incredibly well. Don't let him get to you. He's the one with the problem, not you." Sarah looked up at him, surprised by his kindness. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't expect that to happen. I thought I was doing everything right." "You were," James replied firmly. "Sometimes, no matter how hard we try, there are people who will still find fault. But that doesn't mean you deserve to be treated like that. Not ever." His words struck a chord with Sarah, and for the first time since the incident, she felt a flicker of hope. She nodded slowly, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "I guess I should get back to work," she said, forcing a small smile. "There are other tables waiting." James hesitated for a moment, debating whether to say more. He could tell that Sarah was trying to push through the pain, but he also sensed that she carried burdens far heavier than this single confrontation. Something about her resilience intrigued him, and he decided to dig deeper, not as a CEO looking for answers, but as a person genuinely concerned about another human being. "Do you mind if I ask you something?" he said carefully, ensuring his tone remained warm and non-threatening. "What brings you here?" To this job, I mean? Sarah paused, caught off guard by the question. Most customers never bothered to learn anything about the staff beyond their names. They simply expected service without giving much thought to the individuals providing it. But there was something different about James. His gaze was sincere, his posture open and inviting. For reasons she couldn't quite explain, she felt safe enough to share a piece of her story. Well? She began hesitantly, glancing around, to make sure none of the other servers were listening. I've been working here for almost 2 years now. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. I'm trying to support my younger siblings. They're twins, actually. Our parents passed away a few months ago, and her voice cracked, and she stopped abruptly, swallowing hard to keep her composure. James listened intently, his heart sinking at the revelation. He hadn't anticipated such a heavy backstory when he started this conversation. The image of Sarah rushing between tables suddenly took on new meaning. She wasn't just working to earn a paycheck. She was fighting to keep her family together, carrying responsibilities that would overwhelm most adults, let alone someone her age. I'm so sorry to hear about your loss, James said softly, his voice filled with genuine empathy. That must be incredibly difficult, Sarah shrugged, though her eyes betrayed the depth of her grief. It is what it is, she said simply. Life keeps moving, you know. I can't afford to stop, not when my brother and sister depend on me. They're only 14, and they've already been through so much. I promised them I'd take care of them, and I intend to keep that promise. Her determination was palpable, and James found himself deeply moved. In that moment, Sarah wasn't just a waitress or an employee. She was a symbol of strength, perseverance, and unconditional love. He realized that she represented countless others who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, often overlooked and undervalued, yet holding the world together with sheer willpower. Before either of them could say more, a commotion erupted near the entrance of the restaurant. One of the cooks had accidentally spilled a tray of dishes, and the sound of shattering glass drew everyone's attention. Sarah immediately snapped back into professional mode, excusing herself to assist with the cleanup. As she hurried away, James watched her go, his mind racing with thoughts about what he had just learned. He pulled out his phone and typed a quick note to remind himself to follow up on Sarah's situation later. Then, deciding to observe further, he flagged down the restaurant manager, a middle-aged woman named Linda, and requested a private word. When they stepped aside into a quiet corner, James introduced himself using his undercover alias, explaining that he wanted to discuss the earlier incident involving Sarah. What happened with that customer was unacceptable, he said bluntly, but I noticed how Sarah handled it with grace under pressure. Employees like her are rare gems. Do you think she's getting the support she needs here? Linda sighed, rubbing her temples as if bracing herself for criticism. Look, I'll admit that today's incident was unusual for us. We pride ourselves on maintaining high standards both in terms of food quality and customer interactions. But sometimes, no matter how good our staff is, we run into difficult people. And Sarah, she trailed off, shaking her head. She's one of our best. Always dependable, always willing to go the extra mile. Honestly, I don't know what we'd do without her. James nodded thoughtfully. Does management know about her personal circumstances? About her siblings? Linda frowned, clearly unaware of the details. No, I don't think so. Is there something specific I should know? James hesitated, weighing whether to reveal too much. Ultimately, he chose to tread lightly. Let's just say she's dealing with challenges outside of work that would break most people. Yet here she is, showing up every day and giving her all. That kind of dedication deserves recognition, and maybe a bit of extra support. Linda looked thoughtful, nodding slowly. You're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll look into ways we can help her. Satisfied with the exchange, James returned to his table, reflecting on everything he had witnessed and heard. The evening had revealed far more than he had anticipated when he walked into Bella's bistro earlier that day. What began as a routine observation mission had turned into a profound lesson about the resilience of the human spirit. and the importance of creating environments where people felt valued and supported. As he finished his coffee and prepared to leave, James made a mental note to revisit this location soon. More importantly, he resolved to use what he had learned to enact meaningful change within his company. Sarah's story wasn't just hers, it was a reflection of the struggles faced by many employees across the hospitality industry. And as the CEO, James knew he had the power to make a difference. On his way out, he stopped briefly to thank Sarah once again for her excellent service. She smiled shyly, clearly grateful for his kindness. Little did she know that their brief interaction would set off a chain reaction, one that would transform not only her life but also the lives of countless others in the months to come. James stepped out into the cool night air. He felt a renewed sense of purpose. The city buzzed around him, oblivious to the events that had unfolded inside the bistro. But James knew that tonight marked the beginning of something significant, a journey toward building a workplace culture rooted in compassion, respect, and empowerment. And it all started with a courageous waitress named Sarah. The next morning, James Carter sat in his spacious office on the 20th floor of the company's headquarters. The city skyline stretched out before him, bathed in the soft glow of sunrise, but his mind was far from the view. Instead, it was preoccupied with the events of the previous evening, the rude customer, Sarah's quiet strength, and the realization that his company could do more to support employees like her. He leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against his desk as he mulled over the possibilities. For years, James had prided himself on running a successful business. His hospitality chain was known for its quality service, innovative menus, and prime locations. Yet, despite all the accolades, he couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that something fundamental was missing. Success wasn't just about profits or expansion. It was about people, the ones who kept the wheels turning every day. Employees like Sarah were the backbone of his empire, yet too often they were treated as replaceable cogs in a machine. Last night had been a wake-up call, and James intended to act on it. He picked up his phone and dialed the number for Linda, the manager at Bella's Bistro. When she answered, her tone was polite but cautious, likely expecting criticism after the previous evening's fiasco. Instead, James surprised her by praising Sarah's professionalism and asking how management typically handled such incidents. "Well," Linda began hesitantly, "we usually try to resolve customer complaints internally. If someone's unhappy, we apologize, offer refunds, or redo orders. But last night, well, that was extreme. Honestly, I've never seen anything quite like it." James nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "I understand. What about Sarah? How does she handle stress like that regularly?" Linda hesitated, again, clearly unsure how much to reveal. Finally, she admitted, "Sarah is one of our hardest workers. She rarely complains, even when things get tough. But lately, I've noticed she seems more tired than usual. Between juggling tables and dealing with difficult customers, it's no wonder she looks worn out." James made a mental note of this. "Do you think she feels supported by the team?" he asked. "I hope so," Linda replied. "But honestly, I'm not sure. We don't have many programs specifically designed to help employees cope with personal challenges. Most of us assume they'll speak up if they need help, but maybe that's not enough." Her words confirmed what James already suspected. There was a gap in the system. While policies existed to address workplace grievances, they didn't account for the emotional toll some employees faced daily, or the additional burdens they carried outside of work. It was time to bridge that gap. After ending the call, James called a meeting with his executive team. Within an hour, his top managers gathered in the conference room, exchanging curious glances as they waited for him to explain why he'd summoned them on such short notice. James stood at the head of the table, his expression serious but calm. "Last night I visited one of our restaurants, Undercover," he began, cutting straight to the point. "What I saw, and what I learned, has convinced me that we need to rethink how we treat our employees. Specifically, we need to prioritize their well-being, both inside and outside the workplace." The room fell silent. No one spoke, but James could see the skepticism in their eyes. They weren't used to hearing corporate discussions framed around empathy rather than efficiency. Still, he pressed on. One of our servers, a young woman named Sarah, was subjected to verbal abuse and humiliation by a customer. Despite the situation, she remained composed and professional. When I spoke with her afterward, I discovered that she's raising 2 teenage siblings on her own after losing her parents recently. That kind of responsibility would overwhelm anyone, yet she shows up to work every day determined to give her best. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. We talk a lot about values like respect, integrity, and teamwork, but are we really living up to those ideals? Are we creating an environment where employees feel valued, respected, and supported? Or are we leaving them to fend for themselves when times get tough? A few murmurs rippled through the room, but no one dared challenge him directly. Sensing their hesitation, James continued. Starting today, I want us to implement new initiatives aimed at improving employee welfare. This includes better training for handling difficult customers, access to mental health resources, and recognition programs for outstanding performance. Additionally, I want to establish a fund to assist employees facing financial hardships due to unforeseen circumstances. His announcement sparked a flurry of reactions. Some executives nodded approvingly, while others exchanged worried glances, concerned about the potential costs. One senior manager finally raised his hand. Sir, these changes sound commendable, but won't they require significant investment? And how will we measure their impact? James smiled faintly, appreciating the practicality of the question. Yes, there will be costs involved, but consider the long-term benefits. Happy, supported employees perform better, stay longer, and contribute positively to our brand reputation. As for measuring impact, we'll track metrics like employee retention rates, customer satisfaction scores, and feedback from staff surveys. Trust me, this isn't just about doing the right thing, it's also smart business. With that, the EUS meeting adjourned, leaving the executives to digest James's vision. Meanwhile, he returned to his desk, drafting a memo outlining the proposed changes. By mid-afternoon, the document was circulated throughout the organization, accompanied by a heartfelt message from James, emphasizing the importance of treating employees with dignity and care. Word of the new initiatives spread quickly among staff members, sparking a mix of excitement and disbelief. At Bella's Bistro, Sarah heard about the changes during her shift the following day. Linda pulled her aside during a break to share the news personally. Sarah, Linda said, her tone unusually warm, I wanted to let you know that corporate is rolling out some new programs to support employees. There's going to be training for handling difficult situations, counseling services available if you ever need them, and even a fund to help with emergencies. Plus, she paused, smiling brightly. You're being considered for a promotion to supervisor. Your dedication hasn't gone unnoticed. Sarah stared at her, stunned. For a moment, she thought she might cry, not out of sadness, but from sheer gratitude. Are you serious? She whispered, clutching the edge of the counter for support. Absolutely, Linda replied. You've earned it. And I have a feeling this is just the beginning. That evening, as Sarah walked home from work, she replayed the conversation in her mind. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to feel hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, things were starting to turn around. She thought about the stranger who had defended her the other night, the man whose kindness had seemed almost too good to be true. Little did she know, his actions had set off a ripple effect that would soon transform not only her life, but the entire culture of the company. Back at headquarters, James reviewed the early responses to his memo. Emails poured in from managers and employees alike, expressing appreciation and enthusiasm for the proposed changes. Social media buzzed with praise as word leaked to the public about the CEO who had stood up for a waitress and then followed through with meaningful action. News outlets picked up the story, painting James as a leader who cared deeply about his workforce. As he read through the comments and messages, James felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years. Running a successful business was rewarding, but making a tangible difference in people's lives, that was priceless. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face whatever challenges came his way. After all, true leadership wasn't about titles or profits. It was about lifting others up and creating opportunities for them to thrive. And so, the journey toward a more compassionate workplace began, driven by a single act of courage and compassion. Little did anyone realize just how far-reaching its effects would become, or how many lives it would touch along the way. The weeks following James's announcement were a whirlwind of activity within the company. New training programs were rolled out across all locations, focusing not only on improving customer service skills, but also on teaching employees how to handle difficult or abusive situations. Role-playing exercises became a key part of these sessions, allowing staff members to practice de-escalation techniques in a safe environment. Employees like Sarah found the workshops incredibly helpful, as they provided practical tools for managing stress and maintaining professionalism under pressure. In addition to the training, mental health resources were introduced, including access to free counseling services through partnerships with local therapists. Flyers advertising these benefits were posted in break rooms, and managers encouraged their teams to take advantage of them without fear of judgment. For many employees, this was the first time they'd ever been offered such support, and it made a world of difference. Some began attending therapy sessions regularly, finding solace in being able to talk openly about their struggles. Others simply appreciated knowing that help was available if they needed it. Perhaps the most impactful initiative, however, was the creation of the Employee Assistance Fund, a financial safety net designed to assist workers facing unexpected hardships. Whether it was medical bills, car repairs, or rent payments during lean months, the fund provided grants to those in need. Applications were kept confidential, ensuring that recipients didn't feel singled out or embarrassed. Within weeks, dozens of employees had applied, and stories of relief poured in from every corner of the organization. At Bella's Bistro, Sarah became one of the program's earliest beneficiaries. When her car broke down unexpectedly, leaving her stranded miles away from home, she reached out to Linda, unsure of what to do. Repairs would cost hundreds of dollars, money she simply didn't have. To her amazement, Linda informed her about the assistance fund and helped her submit an application. Within days, Sarah received approval, and the mechanic was paid directly. The weight lifted off her shoulders was indescribable. "I don't know how I would have managed without that help," Sarah confessed to Linda later, tears glistening in her eyes. "It's like someone finally understands what we go through." Linda smiled warmly. "That's exactly the point. You're not alone anymore, Sarah. None of us are." As the initiatives gained momentum, morale among employees soared. People who had once felt invisible now believed they mattered. Conversations in break rooms shifted from complaints about long hours and low pay to discussions about personal growth and future goals. Managers noticed a marked improvement in teamwork as employees began supporting each other more actively. Even customers picked up on the change, commenting on the newfound positivity radiating from the staff. James kept a close eye on the progress, visiting various locations incognito to gauge the impact firsthand. During one visit, he overheard a group of servers enthusiastically discussing the upcoming employee recognition ceremony, an event created to celebrate outstanding performers across the company. Nominees were chosen based on peer recommendations, and winners received cash prizes along with public acknowledgement of their contributions. "That ceremony is going to be amazing," one server said excitedly. "I heard Sarah's name came up multiple times. She totally deserves it." James smiled to himself, pleased to hear that his efforts were resonating so deeply. He decided to attend the ceremony personally, though he planned to keep his identity hidden until the very end. It wasn't about seeking recognition, it was about celebrating the people who truly deserved it. Meanwhile, Sarah juggled her responsibilities with renewed energy. Her promotion to supervisor brought additional challenges, but she embraced them wholeheartedly. Guiding newer staff members reminded her of her own journey and reinforced her belief in the importance of mentorship. She often shared stories of overcoming adversity with her team, encouraging them to persevere no matter how tough things got. "You know," she told a group of trainees during one session, "life will throw obstacles at you, And sometimes it'll feel impossible to keep going. But remember this, you're stronger than you think. And here, in this restaurant, you're surrounded by people who care about you. Lean on them when you need to. We're a family. Her words resonated deeply with everyone present, earning her even more respect from colleagues and supervisors alike. Little did she know, her influence extended far beyond the walls of Bella's Bistro. Outside the company, news of James's actions continued to spread. Articles appeared in major publications, highlighting his decision to stand up for Sarah and the subsequent changes he implemented. Social media buzzed with praise, as customers shared their own positive experiences at the chain's restaurants. Many vowed to frequent the establishments more often, citing the values-driven leadership as a primary reason. Investors took notice too, impressed by the CEO's commitment to fostering a healthy workplace culture. Stock prices climbed steadily, proving that doing good could indeed translate into business success. Despite the growing attention, James remained humble. He knew the real heroes weren't him or even Sarah. It was the collective effort of everyone involved. From frontline workers to upper management, each person played a vital role in shaping the company's future. Still, he couldn't deny the sense of pride swelling in his chest whenever he thought about the transformation taking place. One evening, as he prepared for the employee recognition ceremony, James reflected on the past few months. What started as a single act of defiance against injustice had blossomed into a movement that touched thousands of lives. Yet, he understood that this was only the beginning. There was still much work to be done, both within the company and in the broader industry. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The night of the ceremony arrived, and the banquet hall buzzed with excitement. Hundreds of employees gathered, dressed in their finest attire, eager to celebrate achievements big and small. As the lights dimmed and the host stepped onto the stage, James slipped into the back of the room, blending seamlessly with the crowd. He watched intently as names were called and awards handed out, clapping along with everyone else. When it came time to announce the Employee of the Year, the room fell silent with anticipation. The host opened the envelope dramatically, then paused for effect before reading the winner's name. This year's recipient is Sarah Mitchell. A deafening cheer erupted as Sarah walked toward the stage, her face flushed with disbelief. She accepted the trophy and a sizable check, struggling to hold back tears as she addressed the audience. "I never imagined I'd be standing here today," she began, her voice trembling. "But none of this would have been possible without the incredible support I've received from my coworkers, my manager, and especially—" She paused, glancing around the room uncertainly. "Whoever it was who stood up for me that night." James seized the opportunity. Stepping forward, from the shadows he approached the microphone, drawing gasps of surprise from the crowd. "That person is me," he said simply, his gaze locking with Sarah's. "But let me make one thing clear. The true hero in this story isn't me. It's you, Sarah, and everyone else working tirelessly to make our company better every single day. Thank you for inspiring me to do better. Together we can continue building a workplace where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered." The room erupted into applause once again, louder and more heartfelt than before. Sarah stared at James, overwhelmed by emotion. For the first time, she realized the full scope of his actions, not just defending her dignity but sparking a revolution that changed countless lives. As they shook hands on stage, she whispered softly, "Thank you for everything." James smiled, feeling a profound sense of purpose wash over him. This wasn't just a victory for Sarah or for the company, it was a testament to the power of empathy, courage, and collective action. And as the celebration carried on late into the night, he knew the best was yet to come. The months following the employee recognition ceremony marked a turning point for the hospitality chain. The initiatives introduced by James Carter had not only transformed the workplace culture, but also redefined how employees viewed themselves and their roles within the company. For Sarah Mitchell, life took on a new rhythm, one filled with purpose, confidence, and opportunities she never dreamed possible. As a newly promoted supervisor at Bella's Bistro, Sarah embraced her leadership role with enthusiasm. Her days were no longer just about taking orders and serving meals. They now included mentoring junior staff, organizing team-building activities, and ensuring that everyone felt supported both personally and professionally. She became known as the go-to person whenever someone needed advice or encouragement, earning nicknames like Team Mom and Mentor Extraordinaire. To Sarah, these titles weren't just compliments. They were reminders of why she worked so hard every day. Her relationship with her siblings improved dramatically as well. With less financial stress weighing her down, thanks to the Employee Assistance Fund, and more flexible hours allowing her to spend quality time with them, Sarah finally felt like she was making progress in fulfilling her promise to care for her family. Her brother and sister, once withdrawn after losing their parents, began opening up again, sharing their dreams and aspirations with her. On weekends, they cooked dinner together, laughed over old memories, and planned future adventures. For the first time since their loss, there was laughter in their home, a sound Sarah cherished deeply. Meanwhile, the ripple effects of James's reforms continued spreading throughout the organization. Employees who had previously considered leaving the company due to burnout or dissatisfaction decided to stay. Buoyed by the newfound sense of belonging, absenteeism dropped significantly, productivity soared, and customer satisfaction scores reached record highs. Even competitors took notice, with some attempting to replicate the programs implemented by James's chain. But what set this company apart wasn't just the policies, it was the genuine care behind them. James himself remained deeply involved in overseeing the changes. He made it a point to visit different locations regularly, often surprising employees with impromptu chats during shifts. These interactions gave him invaluable insights into the challenges people faced and allowed him to tweak the initiatives based on feedback. During one such visit, he met a young dishwasher named Carlos, whose story reminded him of Sarah's resilience. Carlos had immigrated to the country 2 years earlier, fleeing violence in his homeland. Despite speaking limited English and having no prior experience in the food industry, he worked tirelessly, determined to build a better life for himself and his aging mother. However, the language barrier made communication difficult, and he often struggled to understand instructions. When James learned about Carlos's situation, he immediately arranged for free English classes to be offered at all locations, partnering with local community organizations to make it happen. Language should never be a barrier to success, James told his executive team during a follow-up meeting. If we want our employees to thrive, we need to equip them with the tools they need. The initiative proved transformative for workers like Carlos, who quickly picked up conversational English skills. Within months, he transitioned from washing dishes to assisting in the kitchen, where he discovered a passion for cooking. His culinary creations soon caught the attention of customers, leading to glowing reviews and even a feature article in a local newspaper. Inspired by his journey, James launched an internal apprenticeship program aimed at nurturing talent from within the company. Back at Bella's Bistro, Sarah played a pivotal role in promoting these programs among her colleagues. She organized informational sessions, encouraged shy employees to apply for training opportunities, and celebrated their achievements loudly. Her efforts earned her widespread admiration, not only from her peers but also from higher-ups. One afternoon, while reviewing performance reports, James realized something significant. Sarah's influence extended far beyond her immediate team. Her positivity and determination were contagious, inspiring others to strive for excellence and believe in their potential. Recognizing this impact, James decided to take things a step further. He invited Sarah to join a special task force tasked with brainstorming innovative ways to enhance employee welfare. At first, Sarah hesitated, unsure if she was qualified to contribute at such a high level. But James reassured her, emphasizing that her perspective as a frontline worker was invaluable. "You've lived through the struggles we're trying to address," he told her earnestly. "Your voice matters more than you think." Flattered and motivated, Sarah accepted the invitation. Over the next few weeks, she collaborated with executives, managers, and fellow employees to develop fresh ideas. Among the proposals was a peer support network, where experienced workers could mentor newcomers, helping them navigate the complexities of the job. Another suggestion involved creating quarterly town halls where staff members could voice concerns directly to leadership, fostering transparency and trust. These innovations further solidified Sarah's reputation as a leader and changemaker. Colleagues began approaching her with suggestions and questions, treating her as an equal rather than just a supervisor. Even customers noticed the shift, commenting on the palpable sense of camaraderie among the staff. Reviews frequently mentioned phrases like warm atmosphere and team spirit, which translated into increased foot traffic and revenue. Outside the company, public interest in James's leadership style grew exponentially. Media outlets clamored for interviews, eager to learn more about the CEO who prioritized humanity over profit. James agreed to sit down with a prominent business magazine, using the platform to advocate for systemic change in the hospitality industry. In the article, he emphasized the importance of treating employees as partners rather than subordinates. "Our workforce is our greatest asset," he stated firmly. "When we invest in their growth and well-being, they repay us tenfold, not just in terms of productivity, but in loyalty, creativity, and passion. It's a win-win for everyone." The article went viral, sparking discussions across industries about the value of compassionate leadership. Other CEOs reached out to James, seeking advice on implementing similar reforms. He welcomed the conversations, viewing them as an opportunity to create broader societal change. Despite the accolades, James remained grounded, crediting much of the success to employees like Sarah. He often reminded himself, and others, that none of this would have been possible without their courage and perseverance. Their stories served as constant reminders of why he embarked on this journey in the first place. One evening, as James reflected on the past year, he found himself smiling. What started as a seemingly ordinary night at a bustling restaurant had evolved into a movement that touched countless lives. From Sarah's quiet strength to Carlos's unwavering determination, each individual played a vital role in shaping the company's future. And though challenges undoubtedly lay ahead, James felt confident that they could face anything, as long as they stood together. For Sarah, the transformation was equally profound. Once burdened by grief and uncertainty, she now radiated hope and ambition. She dreamed of pursuing formal education in hospitality management, envisioning a career path that combined her love for people with her knack for problem-solving. Knowing that James and the company fully supported her aspirations gave her the courage to chase those dreams wholeheartedly. As the sun set over the city skyline, casting golden hues across the streets below, both James and Sarah looked toward the horizon with optimism. They knew the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but they also understood that true progress came from embracing challenges and learning along the way. Together, alongside thousands of others, they had proven that compassion and resilience could spark extraordinary change, not just in one restaurant, one company, or one industry, but in the hearts and minds of everyone fortunate enough to witness it. The ripple effects of James Carter's bold actions and the subsequent reforms continued to spread far beyond the walls of Bella's Bistro, or even the hospitality chain itself. What had started as a single moment of standing up for an employee evolved into a cultural revolution that inspired change across industries, communities, and lives. For Sarah Mitchell, the journey reached new heights as she stepped confidently into her future, while James found himself redefining what it meant to lead with purpose. By the end of the year, Sarah's name became synonymous with resilience and leadership within the company. Her story was featured in internal newsletters, training videos, and even keynote speeches at corporate events. Employees looked up to her not just because of her accomplishments, but because of how authentically she carried herself. She never shied away from sharing her struggles, whether it was losing her parents, juggling responsibilities as a guardian, or dealing with difficult customers, and always framed them as lessons learned rather than obstacles overcome. Her growing influence extended beyond mentoring and managing. She began speaking publicly about her experiences at conferences hosted by the company. During one such event, titled "Empowering Every Employee," Sarah stood before hundreds of attendees, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "When I first started working here, I thought my job was just about serving food," she said, pausing to let her words sink in. "But now I realize it's so much more than that. It's about building connections, creating opportunities, and showing up for each other, even when life feels impossible." Her speech earned a standing ovation, leaving many in tears, including James, who sat quietly in the audience, beaming with pride. He knew then that Sarah wasn't just a symbol of progress. She was proof that investing in people could yield unimaginable results. Afterward, he approached her backstage, offering heartfelt congratulations. "You're amazing, Sarah," he told her sincerely. "Never stop telling your story. It's changing lives." Encouraged by James's support, Sarah decided to pursue her dream of formal education. She enrolled in an online program specializing in hospitality management, balancing coursework with her demanding schedule at Bella's Bistro. The company provided financial assistance through its scholarship fund, ensuring that finances wouldn't hold her back. As weeks turned into months, Sarah thrived academically, earning top marks and impressing her professors with her practical insights. Her ultimate goal? To rise through the ranks and eventually oversee multiple locations, bringing her unique blend of empathy and expertise to every corner of the organization. Meanwhile, James continued championing meaningful change on a larger scale. His focus shifted toward advocating for systemic improvements in workplace culture, not just within his own company, but across the entire hospitality industry. He partnered with nonprofit organizations, labor unions, and policymakers to draft guidelines aimed at protecting workers' rights and promoting mental health awareness. These efforts culminated in the launch of the Hospitality Workers Alliance, a coalition dedicated to supporting employees nationwide. At its inaugural summit, held in a grand conference hall buzzing with energy, James delivered a powerful address. "For too long we've treated our workforce as expendable," he declared, his tone passionate yet measured. "But if this past year has taught us anything, it's that true success isn't measured by profit margins. It's measured by the impact we have on people's lives. Let's commit to making workplaces safer, fairer, and kinder for everyone." The audience erupted into applause, signaling widespread agreement. Industry leaders pledged their support, vowing to adopt similar initiatives within their own companies. News outlets covered the event extensively, praising James's vision and calling him a trailblazer for modern leadership. Yet despite the accolades, he remained humble, redirecting credit to the employees whose stories fueled the movement. Back at Bella's Bistro, the positive changes were evident in every interaction. Staff members worked together seamlessly, buoyed by mutual respect and camaraderie. Customers noticed the difference too, often commenting on the warm, welcoming atmosphere. One regular patron summed it up perfectly. "It's like walking into a family gathering. You feel seen, heard, and cared for." Sarah played a central role in maintaining this environment, encouraging her team to celebrate small victories and support one another during tough times. When a new hire struggled to adjust, she paired them with a seasoned mentor. When someone faced personal challenges, she ensured they received the help they needed, whether through counseling services or the Employee Assistance Fund. Her mantra became a rallying cry for the entire staff. "We succeed together, or not at all." As the years passed, the legacy of James's initial act of courage grew exponentially. Stories of transformation poured in from across the company, from servers earning promotions to dishwashers opening their own restaurants. Each tale reinforced the idea that compassion and opportunity could unlock untapped potential. Even Carlos, the former dishwasher turned sous chef, achieved his dream of running his own kitchen, naming his establishment Casa de Esperanza, House of Hope, in honor of the second chance he'd been given. For James, the most rewarding aspect of the journey wasn't the recognition or accolades, it was witnessing the tangible impact of his decisions. At annual company gatherings, he made it a tradition to invite employees to share their stories, highlighting the human faces behind the statistics. Tears flowed freely as workers recounted overcoming adversity, finding purpose, and building brighter futures. all thanks to the foundation laid by James's reforms. One particularly poignant moment occurred during the 5th anniversary celebration of the employee recognition ceremony. Sarah, now a regional manager overseeing several locations, stood on stage alongside James. Together, they unveiled a plaque commemorating the night everything changed, the night James defended Sarah against a rude customer and sparked a movement that transformed countless lives. As the crowd cheered, James turned to Sarah and whispered, "This is your victory, not mine." Sarah shook her head, smiling softly. "No, it's ours. We did this together." In the final chapter of this extraordinary tale, both James and Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. For James, it was a reminder that leadership wasn't about wielding power. It was about empowering others. For Sarah, it was proof that resilience combined with kindness and opportunity could rewrite even the darkest chapters of life. Their partnership exemplified the power of collaboration, showing that when individuals unite around shared values, they can create ripples of change that extend far beyond what any one person could achieve alone. Today, Bella's Bistro remains a beacon of hope and inspiration, a testament to the fact that businesses can thrive while prioritizing humanity. Its walls echo with laughter, gratitude, and dreams realized, carrying forward the spirit of those who dared to believe in something better. And though James and Sarah may eventually step aside to make room for the next generation of leaders, their legacy will endure, as a reminder that true greatness lies not in titles or profits but in the lives we touch and the futures we shape.